order. If Ms. Davis, please call the roll.
Chairman Vasquez,
Present.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Present.
Member Gaines,
Present.
Member Cohen, Deputy Controller Stowers,
Present.
We have a quorum present, and the board meeting is now called back to order. Just another reminder, we mentioned it at the beginning of our three-day meeting here, but just to let those that are listening and are watching this, that Ms. Cohen is on leave right now, enjoying her newborn. So she will not be with us today, but she is here in spirit. And we wish her well. I know she's doing great, but I'm sure she hasn't been able to get that much sleep these days. With that, let me just remind everybody again, we're on this teleconference line pretty much all together. So your patience is needed. And if you could just continue like we did these last 2 days of reminding and calling out your name before you speak and be recognized, so the transcriptionist could make sure to take copious notes here to record this for the minutes. Appreciate your patience with that. And with that, if I can have Ms. Davis please announce our first order of business for the day.
Our first order of business is an announcement from Acting Chief of Board Proceedings, Henry Nanjo, regarding public teleconference participation.
Thank you, Clerk Davis. Good morning, and thank you for joining today's Board of Equalization meeting via teleconference. Throughout the duration of today's meeting, you will primarily be in a listen-only mode. As you may know from our public agenda notice and our website, we have requested that individuals who wish to make a public comment fill out the public comment submission form found on our, quote, additional information, unquote, webpage in advance of today's meeting, or alternatively, participate in today's meeting by providing your public comment live. After the presentation of an item has concluded, we will begin by identifying any public comment requests that have been received by our board proceeding staff with the AT&T operator providing directions for you to identify yourself. After all known public commenters have been called, the operator will also provide public comment instructions to individuals participating via teleconference. Accordingly, if you intend to make a public comment today, we recommend dialing into the meeting on the teleconference line, as the audio broadcast on our website experiences a 1 to 3 minute delay. When giving a public comment, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We ask that everyone who is not intending to make a public comment, please mute their line or minimize background noise. If there are technical difficulties when we are in the public comment portion of our meeting, we will do our best to read submitted comments into the record at the appropriate times. Thank you very much for your patience and understanding. Chairman Vasquez, Clerk Davis, back to you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, you would please call the first item.
Our first item of the day is BB1, A through C, Workforce Planning Workgroup Stakeholder Meeting. This item will be presented by Chairman Vasquez.
Members, we are again very fortunate to have a follow-up discussion with the appraisers Workforce Planning Workgroup, this time on specific topics that will help us drill down into the type of strategy that the board, the assessors, and possibly the community colleges can rely upon in developing a sound strategy to begin to address the current and pending shortage of skilled appraisers and auditor appraisers statewide. We have 3 topics or issues on the agenda and 12 speakers who have great expertise, knowledge, and experience, who I believe will provide the type of information needed for at least the outline of a sound strategy. So as we listen and engage with these experts, I would ask that we take some notes and ask questions that will lead to solid ideas on how to deal with each issue and to build a strategy we can commit to as part of our modernization plan. And I am going to go ahead and open this up to the members for any remarks or questions. And if I could please start with, I understand Chief of Staff of Malia Cohen, Regina Evans is on the line and would like to give some opening remarks on behalf of Member Cohen. Is Regina available?
Thank you, Chair Vasquez.
Welcome.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chair and honorable members, work group members, and other meeting attendees. With your permission, on behalf of Board Member Cohen, who the Chair indicated earlier is attending to her newly born daughter, I would like to make the following statement for the record. Today's Workforce Planning Work Group meeting is a product of a long journey. At the April 24th, 2019 board meeting, then Chair Cohen introduced a board member L item entitled Statewide Assessment and Administration of Property Taxes, Understanding Emerging Issues. In her memorandum to board members on the item, she stated, there are emerging public policy issues which could impact the operation of the Board of Equalization and local county assessors' offices that would require collegial action on part of the members to ensure that local assessors have access to the resources, tools, and training to address these issues. In that same document, Chair Cohen set forth the basis for the Workforce Planning Work Group meeting that will take place today. She stated, to best address these emerging issues and to provide for an opportunity for local assessors, stakeholders, property owners, and the public to provide their expertise and to express their views that the board should consider. The feasibility of hosting informational public hearings in various counties throughout the state where these issues could be examined by the board. In response to this initiative by Ms. Cohen, the board agreed to launch a State of California property tax modernization effort. Core to this initiative was a series of 4 informational hearings located in each equalization district to receive expert testimony and recommendations from all stakeholders. The first of these informational hearings took place in San Diego in September of 2019. At that hearing, testimony and presentations were made from a distinguished panel of experts regarding workforce planning and capacity with 3 focus areas: recruitment and retention, training and continuing education, and compensation. After receiving valuable and meaningful testimony and recommendations from the presenters, the board directed the executive director to come back to the board and make a recommendation about the best path forward in engaging our presenters in a long-term process to address property tax workforce issues. At the board's October 22nd, 2019 board meeting, Executive Director Fleming recommended a path forward which included the following elements: conducting a staff classification analysis and compensation survey, developing a robust training and professional development program, and creating a role for the board to engage with the legislature, colleges and universities, and others to develop a strategy to ensure that California's property tax systems remain a priority with commitments to invest in its workforce. It was recommended that the board work group hold a series of public meetings and issue a report containing the work group's conclusions and recommendations for action. Chair Cohen at the time asked Chair Vasquez and Mr. Gaines to lead this workforce planning work group. This is what has brought us to this meeting today. Under the leadership of Chair Vasquez and Board Member Ted Gaines, we will listen carefully to the recommendations of the distinguished panel of experts who will appear today. Today's meeting will hopefully provide the information needed to chart this path forward. In particular, Board Member Cohen is very interested in learning what are the tangible deliverables and the three focus areas that would keep, that we would like to see the board address related to workforce planning needs. What specific statutory authority and/or new funding would be required to support the workforce planning options recommended? What would be the best approach to training and education to ensure that California has a highly qualified property tax workforce? We are certainly aware that the agency and the assessor's offices have current workforce needs. However, this need will only increase should the split roll Proposition 15 pass this November. How do we build strong partnerships with California's academic institutions to support the BOE training program? And then finally, whether a salary survey should be conducted to compare the compensation paid in the private sector with that in the public sector at the BOE and at the assessor's offices. Board Member Cohen anticipates working with her board member colleagues and BOE staff when the final report is received from the working group. This final report will likely include specific requests for action to address workforce capacity issues, including recruitment, retention, training and continuing education, and compensation. The final report will greatly assist the board as it continues to fulfill its constitutional responsibilities and its own goal of modernizing California's property tax system. In conclusion, Board Member Cohen wants to express her gratitude and support for all the hard work that the chairs and Board Member Gaines and their staff have done on making this work group meeting a reality. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This concludes my remarks on behalf of Board Member Cohen.
Thank you, and give her my best. With that, let me ask, are there any other members that would like to make any opening remarks before we have Ms. Davis call the first item?
Yeah, I would if I could. Chair
Member
Vasquez.
Gaines, go ahead, Member Gaines.
Yeah, I want to thank Regina Evans for the comments that she's relayed from Member Cohen. We appreciate that, and Member Cohen's leadership in looking at kind of the broad scope of the challenges before the BOE. And also want to thank Chair Vasquez for his leadership on the workforce issue, and an issue that is chronic in your county in LA, but we know that there are issues at the BOE, at the assessor's offices, in terms of the baby boom graying and people retiring, and the need to put in place an opportunity for employment, for great employment, whether it's at the county or the state level. And then to stack on top Prop 15 and the challenges that presents, that would be a tsunami, right? And so we need to look at this at multiple levels, but it's not an exercise looking to address an issue that may happen. It's an issue right now, and so I just want to thank you, Chair Vasquez, and your leadership. I do feel that we have a great opportunity here because LA County is ahead. State, and when we look at the state and we look at the actions taken by the assessor and his need and desire, Mr. Prang, to make sure that they've got the right workforce in place, we can take a look at how that can be implemented statewide. And the LA model may not be perfect for Plumas County. And we'll hear from Assessor Chuck Lenhart later, but I think we can glean so much, and similar to the discussions that we had yesterday about trying to figure out, how do we move forward with assessment appeal boards, and what is the criteria that we ought to be trying to reach at all 58 counties. The BOE has this opportunity to provide leadership on a number of fronts, and today it's workforce planning and being prepared for that. So thank you for this opportunity, and look forward to presenting hopefully a template that could be used statewide in making sure that we're addressing workforce issues and working closely with our assessors. They've already done this in many cases, and they've got ideas that have worked for them in their local counties, and I think we can do this on a joint basis, and all can benefit. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your bringing all of the interested parties together today so we can talk turkey about this. We've had the last year to discuss a lot of these issues, and I'm just concerned that we don't invest too much of our resources now in trying to find out all the answers when really there may be no problem, depending on what happens to Prop 15. But, we have to be prepared for it. We can't start from November 3rd. We have to start now. And so we're all enriched by what we were able to learn. I'm really more interested in learning what the people have to say and what the assessors have to say. So I will end my comments now and just thank you for bringing us to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stowers.
Thank you, Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Here we are, a third day. I'd like to start with thanking the leadership of Member Cohen and Chair Vasquez on the workforce issue. Can't believe it's been a year since we started this project. I also would like to stand in agreement with the opening remarks that were made by Ms. Evans on behalf of Member Cohen. Looking forward to the discussion and looking forward to developing the workforce to deal with our current challenges and our current opportunities. I would just like to add, when we're looking at a qualified workforce, that workforce should not only be qualified, it should be diverse and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good point. With that, if we can have Ms. Davis, please call the first item and sub-item on this topic.
The first item is workforce assessment, recruitment, and retention. And the first sub-item under that topic is A, the California Assessors Association Workforce Assessment Overview.
Thank you. The California Assessors Association will discuss the current and projected appraisers' vacancy levels, appraisers' shortfalls at all levels, including auditor appraisers, current minimum qualifications for recruitment, hiring, and challenges and/or opportunities for modernization. And members, since we have 3 speakers for the association, if possible, if we could hold all our comments and questions until after the last speaker is finished. Ms. Davis, would you please introduce the first speaker?
The first speaker is the Honorable Don H. Gakel, President, California Assessors Association, and Stanislaus County Assessor. Please identify yourself for the record, Mr. Gakel, and begin.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Vasquez, members of the board. This is Don Gakel, Stanislaus County Assessor and President of the California Assessors Association. And thank you for including us in the discussion this morning. I think you've typically tried to include smaller, mid-sized, and large counties, which you have succeeded in today. Stanislaus County is a mid-sized agricultural county, about 550,000 population, over 163,000 parcels, and its assessor's office budgeted full-time staff of 58 employees, of which 32 are certified appraiser and auditor appraiser budgeted full-time staff, including supervisors. And kind of give a background on where we are. Typically, in a year, we have lately been filling up to 3 appraiser positions. This year is no different. We currently have 3 vacancies in the auditor appraiser series. They all happen to be appraisers. And part of the reason for that is that we've had a recent retirement of 2 long-term employees. So currently we're at 29 in the audit appraiser series, but we are anticipating an additional retirement of a long-term employee and anticipate 6 additional retirements of long-term employees within the next 2 years. So I kind of put that in perspective. Over the past 20 years, we've averaged probably 2 retirements a year. So in the next couple of years, we'll be running significantly ahead of that. And I guess you could say that a lot of that is due to what we've talked about in the past as the silver tsunami. It's kind of the trailing edge of the baby boomers leaving our office. And so unfortunately, as part of that, we anticipate that in the next 2 years, 4 out of 7 auditor appraiser employees will be retiring. And that's significant for our office because we've had a particularly difficult time getting qualified candidates in the auditor appraiser series. So this will likely pose a significant challenge for our office. To kind of go over how we hire employees, different counties have different requirements. Pursuant to R&T Code Section 670 to 673 and BOE Rule 283, we kind of take full advantage of the options. We have, in the appraiser series, we primarily are looking at a 4-year college degree, although our Pattern 2 does include high school graduation and cumulative of 4 years of experience and or education in as an accountant, auditor, real property appraiser, building cost estimator, engineer, real estate loan agent, real estate loan underwriter, and a number of other categories that qualify as experience for our office. And on the auditor appraiser side, we have similar qualifications, although obviously We're looking primarily at graduates of a four-year college with a degree in accounting would be our preferred. Obviously, under the Rule 283, if a person has 18 credits in auditing and accounting, we would accept that. Currently, those are our guidelines. We have on the auditor appraiser side, however, we have had some interest in expanding our field to include the BOE provided test, which would allow us to consider people who haven't necessarily graduated with an accounting degree, but would be able to pass the state test and therefore qualify for work as an auditor appraiser. We've generally had good luck recruiting for our appraiser 1-2 positions, which is the entry-level appraiser position. Applicants typically qualifying by way of four-year higher education degree. But occasionally, we are lucky to find candidates who have actual appraisal experience from the outside. Generally, I don't recall hiring anyone in recent memory that did not have actual appraisal experience. But typically, our hires are entry-level trainees and qualified by way of a four-year college degree on the appraiser side. As stated previously, we've had a more difficult time finding qualified candidates for vacant auditor appraiser positions, and we hope to expand the field in the future, as I said, with implementing the state test as part of our recruitment program. We have maintained an ongoing in-house training program for entry-level appraisers and auditor appraisers in preparation for certification exams and as augmentation to BOE, Appraisal Institute, and other training opportunities. That is kind of the current status of our workforce. I'll have more to add under item B, unless you just want me to go through that.
No, I think it's fine. You'll come back under the next item, so that's okay.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to give you kind of a background of where we stand currently as a mid-sized county.
Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you for that information. If we could have Ms. Davis, please call our second speaker.
The second speaker is the Honorable Charles W. Leinhardt, Plumas County Assessor. Mr. Leinhardt.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Vasquez, honorable board members. It's definitely an opportunity that I cherish to have the opportunity to discuss this with you today. Plumas County is a small county in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. We consist of about 26,000 private parcels. 3/4 of our lands belong to the federal government, predominantly in the form of national forest. Just in the process of working through about a 300,000 acre fire, which is quite large by our standards. The Plumas County Assessor's Office is comprised of 8 employees, including myself. 6 of those employees are certified appraisers. I anticipate that over the next 7 to 10 years, 5 of those employees will very likely retire. We are, as far as our requirements to hire appraisers, they're very similar to what Mr. Gakel described to you, so I won't bore you with that. I think that one of the challenges that I see as we deal with this issue of the silver tsunami and the training program as it exists with the board today is that as the Great Recession moved on and reductions were made, You have shifted toward making a lot of offerings online. You've reduced the number of staff trainers that you have significantly, and you have been able to partner with counties to be able to provide some of the training that you're no longer able to provide in-house. We have discussed, and you will discuss later, possible partnerships with junior colleges. From my perspective as a small county assessor, one, we do have a difficult time in attracting candidates that have appraisal background to come to work for us. We often have to develop those resources inside the office, along with being able to utilize coursework provided by the State Board of Equalization. I think it's vital to us that as we vision where we go in the future, that the board be in a position to provide a diverse group of courses over some sort of a logical cycle, so that assessors can be able to plan ahead as to how they're going to be able to bring in, as I expect, many appraisers that will not have background, and be able to get them through the curriculum of the board coursework so that they can be developed for positions of advanced appraisal certificate nature. And so I encourage the board to be looking at that as one of the principal goals of this. Secondly, I'd like to just say that from a small county perspective, oftentimes we don't have the luxury of having a role which larger offices have, which is something called the Chief of Assessment Standards. And so as the assessor, we generally tend to fill that role. But what we also tend to do is we find that the BOE survey process is extremely helpful for small counties. We have small workforces. We all do lots of different things. And having that extra set of eyes come in and take a look at our procedures is very helpful. That said, I think that as we look at workforce development, it is important for those of us in rural counties to be able to rely on the Board of Equalization having a well-established workforce that has a strong background in property taxes, so that as they come do these surveys, they have the experience of having done the work, so that they can provide us with recommendations that are based on experience in other offices. And so as you look at this issue, I think a lot of it is also trying to get the salaries at the board at a point where you can retain the type of experienced staff members that you need to be able to provide the resources to those of us out in the smaller counties that really rely on those resources. I think that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Lenhart. That was very insightful because, many of us really look at the large counties and forget about some of the smaller ones and their needs. But with that, let me move on to our third speaker, Ms. Davis.
The third speaker is Mr. George Ranke, Chief Deputy Assessor, Los Angeles County Assessor's Office. Mr. Ranke.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you very much for having me. I am here representing our assessor, Jeffrey Prang of Los Angeles County. Los Angeles represents about 10 million residents. We have about 2.6 million real estate parcels and business assessments. Total roll is close to $1.7 trillion, which represents about 25% of the assessed value throughout the state. When I had the pleasure of joining you last was early this year, and was before COVID came along. At that time, we were already concerned about the vacancies that we had in this county and our ability to train appraisers and bring on new staff. At that time, we had about 60 vacancies, and we were planning on bringing on 2 classes of approximately 30 each sometime in the middle of this past year.
As a result of COVID, we were not able to bring on those classes due to hiring freezes, which were typically the case throughout the states in anticipation of the economic impacts of COVID. We are currently at about 80 vacancies right now. Our attrition is generally between 20 and 30 appraisers per year, so that is consistent with what we've been experiencing pretty much over the last decade, and would anticipate that to continue and possibly even increase a bit. We were able to bring on an ownership class just before things started to close down because of COVID. The challenge that we ran into, and I think this is also something we need to be mindful of as we move forward with discussions about training appraisers, is we've had to do that training virtually. We brought on the new ownership class, oriented them, and immediately sent them home to start training. And we had to pivot very quickly because they came on just before everything was being shut down. So that was our initial pilot in virtual training, and I'm happy to report that it went very well, and we've been getting very good results from that. We are continuing to try to bring on the 2 appraisal classes that we we're planning on bringing on earlier this year, and we are having to now focus and shift towards virtual training for our appraisers. The anticipation is going to be that, at least we're hopeful at this point, there are still challenges on onboarding any staff, but hoping that either by the end or the beginning of next year that we will be able to start training at least a class of somewhere between 30 and 40 appraisers virtually, and we are hoping to include the community colleges in part of that training. So that will be our first experiment with virtual training of an appraiser class, and hoping that that will be somewhat of a pilot for the virtual training of appraisers, and also working along with the community colleges to prepare for future training if the need comes to expand quickly, which we're anticipating if Prop 15 goes through in November. So that's where we are right now. I am happy to join in this conversation and look forward to discussing the other items on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renke. As always, your information is enlightening. Excuse me. Members, do we have any questions or comments for these 3 speakers we just heard from?
I have a comment as to
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Mr. Gakel. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gakel, are you there?
Yes, I am.
You mentioned the excess retirement that you're having, and of course we don't know just how great our burdens are going to be starting the end of this year. Question comes to me: do these people, by and large, when they retire, do they want to move back east to be closer to their grandchildren, or do they stick around for a while? Can we bring them back if we're all of a sudden going to need some talent? I would think they, being experienced and knowledgeable of the area, would be something we wouldn't want to lose access to. And when they come back, do we offer them some kind of premium or adjustment in their retirement, or do we have an incentive so that we could make use of them if we do have the need? I'm concerned, that we'll be able to fill our need, and it's getting harder and harder, as you point out.
Thank you for the question. Just a couple of practical things. Most of the time, and I'll be perfectly honest, most of the people, by the time they retire, they have very little interest in coming back to work again, just to be frank about it. And I think that, when you mention compensation, yes, I mean, a certain amount of compensation might be able to entice them back. Unfortunately, I don't have control over that. That would be up to the county to provide for that type of compensation. They are, of course, then under the current retirement guidelines, unless we can show an extreme emergency need, and the pending split role could qualify as that. Most of the employees have a mandatory 6-month sit-out. And usually at the end of that time, they've gotten on in their retirement life, and they really don't have much interest in coming back. I mean, I appreciate the question, and yes, you're right. It is a large pool of talent with a lot of years of experience, but I don't know how practical it would be to bring them back.
Sure. Well, I'd just like to mention if maybe they might be impressed if they got a call from the governor. Well, they're not going to get a call from the governor, but they might get a letter from Chair Vasquez if you drafted something that pointing out that there is a need and that they are well thought of and well talented, and we would ask that they consider a few months of additional time until we can get caught up. I'm sure that Chair Vasquez would be happy to send out whatever letter you would draft that might impress them. I'm all for using what authority we have to make them feel that it's an answer to the call. We're not going to give them a call from the governor, but we can get them a letter from the board letting them know that we would reach out to them because we're aware of how important they are to the county. We're willing to step in and help you bring them back for 3 to 6 months if it's a need.
Okay. Well, I don't disagree with your basic thought. I just don't know how practical it would be to implement, but it is an interesting thought on the talent that's out there.
I want you to know that the board is here to help you bring somebody back if we can. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Chair Vasquez?
Go ahead, Member Gaines.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to follow up with a question to Assessor Gakel also in terms of your in-house training. I was wondering if maybe you could just expand on that a little bit.
Well, a lot of our in-house training is geared towards the appraisal trainee. We generally bring, obviously it's not true of auditors, but from the appraisal side, we bring trainees into the residential department. We do a lot of in-house, or a lot of training geared toward the basics of the information that people would need for certification, in addition to the State Board of Equalization coursework. We do it for a couple of reasons. One, we want them to succeed. We want them to pass the certification exam and give them the best opportunity to do that. It also gives us an opportunity to evaluate them through the training process during their probationary period to determine if they are truly suitable for the appraisal job. That probably is a 2 to 3 month project, and of course that doesn't include ongoing on-the-job training that we provide for the employees. In the past, we have actually also had in-house training on other specific topics, including ag and commercial industrial and different specific aspects. Due to work demands and staffing, we haven't done so much of that in recent years, but we do try and maintain an ongoing training, and usually are able to create some pretty good journey level appraisers within the 1 to 2 year period.
Are you finding that you're
That's
getting,
in residential, not in more
Yes.
advanced appraisal.
you finding getting more applicants as a result of coronavirus and the recession?
I don't know. We just did a recruitment. It seems that we got an adequate number of applicants. We give them it's basically a general aptitude test in language and math skills. And unfortunately, about usually 2/3 of any applicant group washes out at that point.
Wow.
Which is surprising to me, but nonetheless, that happens. We typically haven't had trouble getting applicants with 4-year degrees that we can train. As I said in previous comments, we have more trouble finding qualified auditor appraiser candidates. We've had very limited success in that over the last 5 to 10 years.
Okay. All right, great. And let's see, I'm just wondering thank you, Don, I appreciate that. I'm wondering if I could have Assessor Lenhart maybe expand a little bit on that same question for small counties. How do you recruit? And when you do recruit and you find someone, how do you train them when you've got a small office?
We generally, probably still similar to what Dawn does, we do.
Chuck, are you there?
We may have lost his audio. Let's see if he gets back.
Okay.
AT&T, can you check to see if Charles Linehart's line is still on or is still connected?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. We basically have one of our journeyman level appraisers work with our trainees because there's a couple parts to that. They can understand appraisal theory through taking state board courses, but then they also need to understand our office practices, our software, how to translate values from an appraisal analysis into the computer system so that they get billed correctly, periods for supplementals, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of things in addition to the basic training that they get in state board classes, which we have to do kind of as an ongoing mentorship throughout their first couple of years. We've had situations when we've done applications where actually we've had no applicants on multiple cycles. It's been a little bit better in more recent years, and fortunately, as I shared with you before, I've got appraisers that will probably be retiring within the next maybe 7 to 10 years. So I just happen to be at that nice place where I have a staff of folks that have been in the job for a long time and have the experience to get the work done.
Yes.
The challenge is that within the next few years, we're going to start cycling through those people, and so it places a big burden on small offices when we bring on new people that don't have the background because of the amount of diversity that we do. George has whole departments that handle the tasks, maybe 2 or 3 different departments that handle the tasks that maybe one of my employees does, because I've got an employee that does boats, and they do exemptions, and they do business property.
Sure.
I mean, all these kinds of things that in a bigger office would be handled by different people.
Yes. Okay. And you had also made a comment about surveys from the BOE and how helpful they can be. But I've heard this from more than one county that we want to make sure that the folks from the BOE that are coming out to do the survey are asking the right types of questions that can be helpful for the assessors. And I was just wondering, can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I can. you know, because of the number of different assessment programs that I manage, for instance, I have a whole program that deals with recreational mining claims. That's every county, but it's kind of a specialized area. And so having Jim McCarthy, who's the mineral specialist for BOE, you know, sit down with me when we wanted to revamp that program and modernize it was extremely helpful, because we had his experience from working with all 58 counties for us to be able to develop something that the survey team would respect when they came and did our survey, because they had found some problems in the past. And so that was a real success story for me. So I think we benefit from you at the board.
Oh, it seems like it cut out again.
Oh, we're having problems with technology. Let's see if we can reconnect them.
I'm here. Are you here?
Okay.
Go ahead.
We got you back.
Okay. Do you recall what I said right before I left?
No, I
think about mining and having success on mining advice, and then I think you were kind of segueing into areas of improvement that we could help with. I just want to make sure that our people are trained well enough to ask the right sorts of questions for a survey that is constructive for the assessor. Well, I think we lost them again, but my questions have, I think, been answered. I just want to relay that to our executive director, Fleming, that just want to make sure we continue to work on making sure that the surveys are of value. I know that we have our constitutional duties, but we want to make sure they're productive and of value for our assessors.
Yeah, duly noted. This is Brenda Fleming, Executive Director. Duly noted your comments, and I think there's two aspects of that. There's the head and the tail of the coin, and I think what Assessor Linhart is suggesting is that when we have subject matter expertise in certain areas, to the extent that we can provide advice, some initial training, do that in advance, and helping with more knowledgeable best practices within the assessor's office where appropriate. When the surveys are subsequently done, then we overall have success. So duly noted. Some of that we do, as he's indicated. I think what we're trying to do, and I don't want to interrupt the other comments and presentations, but part of our modernization effort is really to resume a lot of the things that we have historically done, members, that have, as one of our speakers just said, maybe is not as strong as it once was because of recessions, et cetera. But we fully intend to ensure that our leadership role and our responsibilities are fully conducted in all of these lanes. So I'll continue to listen, and staff will get down into the detail.
Wonderful, thank you. And then if I just follow with one more question of George Renke with LA County, and is he still on the line? I was hoping maybe he would talk a little bit about the virtual training and how that is going.
Thank you, Member Gaines. As I mentioned earlier, we've been doing that with our ownership class. We have not yet embarked on that with the appraiser class. Most of that has been done with Microsoft Teams or Zoom type of platform, where our instructors will pull the group together and do the training, and then a lot of it is done independently by the staff in doing the reading and some of the other work that they can do independently, and then we give regular exams as we would if we were having in-person training. The expectation of when we can bring in a appraisal class is to do essentially the same thing. We're at a point now where it's about 85% of our staff are working from home. And, that includes, the entirety of our training classes are actually training from home and have spent very, very little to almost no time actually physically in the office. We were able to set up the systems and the access to our computer systems so that they could work from home as if they were, working at a desk at work. So, the virtual environments or the virtual work environments have worked quite well, and we've been using that to train our staff also.
Great. And do you think that that virtual training could go to the appraisal arena and could it be more in depth? Can you provide additional classes?
Yeah, so we're prepared to start that whenever we're able to onboard another class, and as I said, we're anticipating that might be towards the beginning of next year. As I mentioned, we've ran into a lot of challenges with hiring freezes, and then some of the other hurdles that have to be met before you can bring an employee on board. But we will take the same format that we've been using for the ownership class and using that for the appraisal class. And then we're also hopeful. We've been having very constructive discussions with the community colleges. And, as I'm sure you know, the colleges and universities have been shifting over to this type of training also. So we're hoping that we can collaborate in this effort with the appraisal class in training our new hires and then establishing a pilot program that could be expanded if Prop 15 goes through, because as we've mentioned before, we will need a very aggressive expansion of our training capabilities.
Okay, so let me just throw out a scenario. Let's say that Prop 15 fails, but we're in this coronavirus mode, and let's say we come out of it next year with a vaccine. Do you think that you'll continue along this basis of having your workforce operating out of their homes? You said you're at 85% right now, but do you envision maybe a new model where people can work out of their homes?
I do. I think it's going to be a combination of both, physically at the office and also people, working from home. So I don't think we're going to completely go back to the way things were before. It's going to be somewhere in between the two. I think it is beneficial, especially for appraisers. A lot of the training that takes place after the initial training is through mentorship.
Yes.
And I don't think that can be completely replaced, by virtual means. So I think there always will be a need, and I think people generally just have the need to, work side by side with colleagues and develop those relationships. And I think we've come a long way in being able to do that virtually, but I don't think the virtual environment will ever completely replace the social interactions that take place in the office.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ranke. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chairman Vasquez, Yvette Stowers here.
Yes, Ms. Stowers, go ahead.
I just have a real quick question or clarification regarding the LA's ownership class virtual training. Was that for new hires or already experienced staff?
It was new hires. We were bringing on a class in the February-March timeframe, and as soon as we were onboarding them, the county ordered the safer at home. So we, to the greatest extent possible, were having our staff working from home, and that included training from home. So we took the class, we did our orientation in very small groups where we could keep them safe and socially distanced, and then, prepared them to go home and train, at home rather than being here in a classroom setting, which at that time was no longer possible. So it was a very quick pivot. It happened within a matter of a week. And we basically did it by necessity.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Can I make just one final comment?
Sure, go ahead.
And it really has to do with Mr. Renke and what he's doing in LA County. But, you know, if you're working on training, could those be turned into training videos that then could be used by other county assessors? And I don't know if that would be, maybe that's something that the Assessors Association could coordinate.
We have been doing that wherever possible, and I'm not sure the complete extent of the training that we have recorded, but we have been doing some of that and expanding that program under the current circumstances.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Good. And has there been any opportunities to share that with other counties, or has that been discussed? I'm just curious.
So we often include other counties in some of the trainings that we provide when we're doing that physically, and I assume that when we start to do that virtually, we will certainly reach out and include other counties in that training.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Chair Vasquez, if I may.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Is that Regina?
Yes, I again want to thank the presenters for the valuable input that they've provided today. But I'm wondering, for each presenter, if there were 1, 2, 3 actions that the board could take to address sort of recruitment. Any suggestions or recommendations, sort of tangible objectives that we could work
on? This is Don Gakel. I think one area that's critical, especially if the split roll were to pass, is that where we really need significant training effort, if it passes, would be at the more advanced appraiser level. As important as entry level is, the real critical crunch for assessors, especially in the largest counties, will come in trying to find competent commercial industrial appraisers. So that's going to be more than likely training of existing appraisers to work at a more advanced level. And so I think, yeah, we're looking at what we call, we have a significantly higher number of senior appraisers in our commercial industrial division, because that's where our most seasoned appraisers are. And so it's that jump from journey appraiser, or say of residential property, up to qualified commercial industrial appraiser. And that is going to be the most critical training challenge for assessors.
Thank you, Mr. Gakel. Other presenters, please.
This is Chuck Lenhart. Based on my experience in having served with the BOE Survey Committee for, I don't know, probably 7 years or so, and having gone through the chairs of CAA, and worked with a lot of prior executive directors at the BOE, I think I would really encourage the board to get behind their executive team to work with CalHR to try to get your salaries competitive with the counties that surround you, and just be aware that historically the board was a place that could draw upon the seasoned appraisers from the counties that surround Sacramento to staff their ranks. And, to the current environment, it appears that those salaries that surrounding you have gone up to the point where I know of a number of assessors that have had some very good hires from BOE. And I think that as we look at you being able to provide the leadership role both in training and in surveys, I think that you've got to be able to solve that dynamic.
So this is Brenda Fleming, Executive Director. I just want to comment that Mr. Lenhart is just stealing my thunder because on my talking points, the area that I'm really most looking for the board's continued support in this area is to help us address the salary and compensation issue. So thank you for that for that preview. Thank you much.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but it's my observation over a long period of time.
Yeah, duly noted. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I agree with all three previous speakers. The compensation is going to be an issue even more so with Prop 15. The competition for skilled staff will go up significantly. And also the advanced training there's going to be a much greater need for the advanced training that's available. The split role concept is clearly focused on commercial industrial properties. Only about 20% of my staff works on commercial industrial, and we're anticipating that if Prop 15 goes through, that there will be a lot of outside recruitment of that staff. So we would anticipate that we would lose much of our skilled appraisal staff to tax agents or just outside agencies. We're all going to be competing for the same staff, and the numbers that are needed are just not available. So, beyond the certification training, which, we've also often referred to that as, that's your stepping stone into and opening the door to basically, what equals a master's program in appraisal. And, personally, I took about 15 to 20 additional college level courses after I passed my first year of training. And that was fairly common as I was going through the ranks as an appraiser to become a commercial appraiser, and then, get up to the level where you're doing some of the more challenging properties that Los Angeles has. So the advanced training courses and the availability of those are going to become very important.
And, along those lines, Mr. Rankin, I know when I've had conversations with the assessor, Jeff Prang, he was real clear with me that the amount of money that we can generate by having, these appraisers, especially if Prop 15 passes, should be a very good, solid argument to justify a salary increase, because on the flip side, the state stands to gain quite a bit of more revenue as a result of this, right?
Yes.
Which definitely outweighs, I think it was like, I don't know if he said it was 7-to-1 or 3-to-1, the return, if you have sufficient staff to perform these duties.
Yeah. So generally speaking, when we are short-staffed and we're not able to complete all of the work, generally speaking, for every dollar that's invested in additional appraisal staff to complete that work, the return is typically between $7 and $10.
That's what I thought. Yeah, so I think we're in a good place as we go before the governor or the legislators on this issue to increase the pay scale for these folks.
Chairman Vasquez?
Ms. Stowers, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have for the group, anyone could respond. When it comes to your advanced commercial industrial appraisers, I'm just curious, are most of those individuals audit appraisers or regular appraisers? And do you envision needing more audit appraisers to do commercial industrial appraisals, especially if Prop 15 passes?
I'm sorry, Don, please go
Well,
ahead.
it's okay. I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
Typically, in our experience, no, our commercial industrial appraisers are generally not auditor appraisers. The auditor appraiser is kind of a specialized function in the office. Although they are certified appraisers, they are typically not doing commercial industrial valuations. I had originally thought, in thinking about the split role, that gee, I've got auditor appraisers over there. I can train them to do commercial industrial property. The only downside to that is nothing in the split role takes away the requirements of auditing in the R&T code, and there still will be a significant property to process filings on each year. Anyway, so I don't see moving auditor appraisers into appraising. But to answer your basic question, as currently it works out, no. The appraisers doing commercial industrial appraising have come up through the appraisal side of the office, not the audit side.
And just to add, the same is true in Los Angeles. Auditor appraisers, it's always been a challenge finding qualified appraisers to fill that role, and part of the challenge there is also in the compensation to attract that type of talent. But the majority of the commercial industrial appraisers that are working in our major properties section come through the real estate appraisal ranks.
Thank you for that clarification. I was thinking just the opposite.
Okay.
Members, any other questions?
Mr.
There's no
Vasquez,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would like to, the question I posed about recommendations, I'd like to hear if there are any public commenters that would speak to that.
Ms. Evans, we will get to the public in a little bit.
I'm sorry, I thought that would have been the next step. My apologies, sir.
Not a problem, not a problem. If there's no further questions, Ms. Davis, would you please introduce our next sub-item on the first speaker here?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, may I make a quick announcement?
Sure, go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure to mute your phones if you are not speaking so that we can minimize the background noise. And also, Mr. Chairman, would you like for us to check with AT&T to see if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item?
Sure, go ahead.
AT&T, can you please check to see if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item at this time?
Certainly, ladies and gentlemen, if you do wish to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0. 1, 0. And we have no one in queue at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, will you continue to introduce our sub-item and our first speaker?
Yes, sir. The second sub-item under 1 is B, the California Assessors Association Assessment on Retention. It is a discussion on current and projected attrition rates and the general reasons current efforts used to retain and/or promote appraisers and auditor appraisers, challenges, classification, pay, parity, compensation, etc., and opportunities for modernization. The first speaker is the Honorable Don H. Gakel, President, California Assessors Association and Stanislaus County Assessor. Mr. Gakel?
Thank you. And yes, just to confirm, this is Don Gakel, Stanislaus County Assessor, president of the CAA. And so I did take a look at, just curious over time, looking back at as I was cleaning my office because of a move, I found a 1997 report on employees in the office, and I compared that to our current list. And surprisingly, there were still 8 names on the list that were still here. But the numbers then were 53 employees, and the number right now is 49. But in the middle, we have hired 126 employees and lost 130 employees, either through resignation, termination, or retirement, and to get to our current number of 49 employees. And actually, I had never looked at that number, and it is surprising to think of the people that you hire and then leave. We tend to focus on the people we kind of started working with and the people who are long-term members of the office. But there are there's a lot of hiring and attrition along the way. So that turnover number works up to about 6 people per year, which, in thinking of a recent time, that's probably pretty accurate. We do go through generally hire 3 appraisers a year, and typically end up hiring 3 assessment technicians at the front of the office. So I don't really think that basic pattern to change that much. I would kind of expect that basic pattern to continue. Other than what I previously noted is a kind of increase in retirements. It's also kind of related in a way. I've often thought we never got over layoffs that happened due to budget restructuring in 1993. State level, we lost a significant number of journey level appraisers. The people ultimately that replaced most of them under the state grant program were more part-time employees that became full-time employees, but were not necessarily focused on advancing in the office or providing leadership in the office. And so we find ourselves now kind of promoting a lot of younger people, which is a good opportunity for them, but a much younger group of people than in the past into supervisor and senior appraiser level jobs. One of our big challenges is compensation, just as it is at the state. And I don't know if to some extent I view it as particular to our county. In many appraiser categories, our county is 10% below the average compensation of the 8-county survey comparison group that is used by our county, and that's counties up and down the Central Valley. Also includes Sacramento County and Monterey counties, but that is a significant challenge for us and has been, I think, for a number of years. As a way to try and keep workforce in place, we have tried to provide the best working environment we can. In those regards, we have for 32 years in the office provided a flexible scheduling, and the program has kind of evolved over the years, but currently allows in-office hours from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Employees who don't have noted deficiencies in their performance can work any combination of 40 hours, including 10-hour days, subject to a minimum 3-hour day and coverage requirements of the office to meet public needs at our front counter or on the phone. And I have to say that flexible scheduling program is the most often cited reason for job satisfaction and is a major component of our retention efforts. we're with the COVID-19 pandemic, just as LA County has and other counties have, we've introduced remote work and are monitoring our production levels to kind of evaluate that and make sure that it's not just working for the employee, but also working for the county. But, you know, given it's kind of like Pandora's box has been opened, and I suspect it's going to be difficult and not necessarily advisable to try and put it back in the box. So I suspect we will be going forward with remote work in some fashion with the county. Currently, we do require employees working remotely to rotate into the office at least 2 days a week so that we have phone and counter coverage in the office. That could be modified at any time, but right now that seems to be working for us. That may also ultimately be a motivating factor for people to stay and work and could become part of our retention policy. For the overall challenges facing the office, we've already discussed kind of split role considerations, but to kind of put it in perspective, we did a lot of research on this, and I had earlier, I think in our last discussion, specifically on the split role back in, I believe, July, I talked about 12 to 1,500 properties that I had identified that would require reappraisal because they would be above the $3 million mark. However, I did a little more in-depth analysis and found out that between 55 and 60% of our commercial industrial properties have one owner owning 2 or more properties, which will all have to be analyzed to see if combined they beat the 3 million, go over the $3 million mark. Another approximately 2,000 properties owned by corporations, LLCs, limited partnerships, and trusts where ownership is not as clear may also need to be analyzed. So really what it boils down to is potentially we're looking at having to do as many as 2,800 valuations per year, in addition to the work we already do, reappraising 600 to 700 properties in total. So a big impact, and we had estimated up to 12 appraisers, in large part because of what we anticipate as the increased appeal workload. And so, given that, then of course that is our challenge, and will be a challenge across the state to provide those additional appraisers, as we previously discussed, and get appraisers who have the advanced training to do commercial industrial property. And so that is probably the biggest potential challenge facing us, but ongoing, even if the split roll doesn't pass. Compensation here, just as at the state level, is going to be a critical thing for us going forward as part of retention. I like to think we're doing a good job for what we can in the office, but I can't totally control compensation for the employees. So those are the kind of the turnover and retention issues that we are looking at, and of course training by the State Board of Equalization is a challenge now, and hopefully through online courses and potential partnerships that training can be increased. So those are my comments on this section.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gakel. Ms. Davis, please introduce our second speaker.
The second speaker is the Honorable Charles W. Linehart, Plumas County Assessor. Mr. Linehart?
Okay, Chairman Vasquez, honorable board members, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
You can. Okay, great. I came to work at the Plumas County Assessor's Office in 1997. And at that time, there were 12 employees in the office. Through various recessions, we have been reduced down to the 8 employees that we discussed previously. And of those 8 employees, 6 of those are certified appraisers. 2 of those appraisers were probably my earliest hires, and they're now the supervisors in the office under my direction. And I anticipate probably that over the next 10 years, at least 5 of those 6 certified appraisers will probably retire. And that's just kind of the way it looks. You know, I think we've probably all heard the old African proverb that says that when an old man dies, a library burns down. And as we look at small assessors' offices, what we recognize is that because each appraiser or each employee does so many different things, and we don't have the diversity like a county like LA where you've got specialists in a particular area, we really have to do training in multiple areas when we hire a new employee. And it puts a large burden on a small office when we don't have funding to be able to have enough employees to do the kind of cross-training we'd really like to do. And so I think that I see over that period of time a much more turmoil than we have now because I've had a very stable staff for so many years. And I see that's before we ever get involved in the split role itself. I think a lot of, for small counties, the effect of the split role is going to be determined partly by how the legislature chooses to implement the measure should it pass. You know, Don has kind of talked about stratifying appraisals. When I look across my county, I have about 16 properties that are assessed for more than $2.5 million now, which conceivably, if they were reassessed, maybe they'd hit the $3 million mark. It's much more difficult to determine, and I think that is something that we as assessors have still probably not really gotten our arms around, is how are we going to determine if a person has a second home in Plumas County, how do we know, you know, until we get that full inventory of what they own across the state of California, we really don't know what the impact is going to be for people that have multiple ownerships that exceed $3 million. And so to me, that's a huge unknown that both the board and the assessors are going to have to really try to get our arms around quickly. As far as, so I think I don't know that I have much more I could expand beyond what Don said about, you know, the attraction and retention issues. I've been very fortunate up to this season, but I expect that season to change over the next few years.
Thank you, Mr. Linehart. Very insightful with your comments there. If I can have Ms. Davis please introduce our third speaker.
The third speaker is Mr. George Ranke, Chief Deputy Assessor, Los Angeles County Assessor's Office. Mr. Ranke?
Thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, the attrition in our office for the appraisal staff is somewhere between 20 and 30 a year. And typically that is retirements. We did have a problem at the entry-level appraisers that would leave fairly early on, and you know, part of that concern was due to the compensation. We were successful in removing the first couple of steps, so they are now starting at a higher level, and we are hoping that will address that particular problem. If Prop 15 goes through, I think we're going to end up with a much greater problem than we currently have, although there, you know, already is, you know, concerns over compensation levels at this point. However, if Prop 15 goes through, we're going to have a lot more competition from the outside for those very appraisers that we're going to need to do the commercial industrial work. And I believe that the greatest threat is those appraisers who have been with the department between probably about 5 and 15 years that are qualified and have experience working commercial industrial properties. And I'm assuming that those will be the primary targets and the most likely to leave in fairly short order if it passes. I think that not only the state but also the counties should be looking at this particular concern sooner rather than later, because it's going to happen very quickly after November 3rd. That if Prop 15 passes, there's going to be a lot of competition, and if we are not ready to quickly adjust the compensation, then we are going to lose a great deal of our talented staff that are capable of working commercial industrial properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ranke. Members, do we have any questions or comments for these speakers on retention?
Mr. Vasquez, Regina, I would ask the question I asked previously in the retention space, if there were specific actions the board could take or work towards, what recommendations would you give us as it relates to retention?
This is Chuck Lenhart. I think I would reiterate my comments that, and I'm talking about board retention now. We have these issues at the county level as well, but I think having the board work with their administrative team and Cal HR to resolve the competitive issue with regard to salaries so that you can attract and retain people that are already at the journeyman level in their particular fields rather than having to hire folks out of college and train them only to lose them to surrounding counties, I think is a significant issue that you need to concentrate on.
Thank you. And anything in particular as it relates to how we support local assessors' offices in the retention space?
Well, again, I think I would create the nexus of your ability to retain employees in that provides then the knowledge base for me to be able to use as a resource as I'm developing policies within my office and being able to tap into that resource to improve my operations.
Thank you. Others?
This is Don Gakel. Though it would be difficult, I think, for the board to have a direct impact at the local level in terms of compensation. Certainly, compensation at the local level is an issue, just as it is at the state level. But to the extent that the board can support and encourage programs at the state level, such as the more recent property tax programs, grants and loans for assessor projects, would be helpful to local counties, and I think that's something that the Board of Equalization could push at the state level.
Thank you. Mr. Ranke, any suggestions or recommendations?
As I mentioned, I believe the main concern would be compensation, and we we do compete with each other. I have lost staff to other counties, and so it's almost potentially a matter of equalization amongst the different organizations throughout the state, and that the compensation is reflective of the cost of living in those areas. There are obviously other factors that come into play when our appraisers decide to go to another county, but compensation is certainly at the top of the list.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
No, members, are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Ms. Davis, can we check with AT&T if there's anybody in the public that wants to weigh in on this?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. AT&T, can you please check to see if there's anyone on the public line who'd like to make a comment on this item?
Certainly. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0. 1, 0. And we have no one queuing up.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, if you would please introduce our next sub-item on this and our first speaker.
The third sub-item under 1 is C, BOE Workforce, a general assessment. It is a discussion of current and projected vacancy levels, i.e. silver tsunami, split role, entry-level appraiser, and auditor appraised shortfalls, etc. Minimum qualifications for recruitment and hiring, challenges, classification issues, pay parity, compensation, etc., BOE recruitment program, and opportunities for modernization. The first and only speaker is Ms. Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director, Board of Equalization. Ms. Renati?
Good morning. This is Brenda Fleming. I'm sorry for jumping in here. Just want to make, if you would allow me to make a comment or two, and I absolutely will turn it over to Chief Deputy Renati, who will definitely get into the detail. But I just want to kind of pull this all together as to, what our role and responsibility is for what I call the A and the B, as I mentioned, of this workforce issue. And staff, again, will get down into the detail. From our strategic plan perspective, since I've been on board as Executive Director starting in January 2019, we are still rebuilding our organization. Our strategic plan is a reflection of the rebuilding of our organization. And if you recall, members, the strategic plan is the rebuild, revitalize, and modernize. So AB 102 absolutely had an impact, but even some of the challenges that we've had in this training area in terms of classification, salaries, et cetera, actually started even before AB 102. But what we want to focus on strategically in this lane is two aspects of the A and B. One is the actual training of our own staff, and that is absolutely a workforce issue, where just similar to what Mr. Ranke referred to, in that as you're bringing on your new staff, you absolutely want to focus on the development of those new staff. We also have the pleasure of having existing staff who for many years have had some training, but it hasn't been our priority and focus area of concentration. So we want to resume going back to really investing in our staff so that we're developing their knowledge and their skills and their abilities, so that, as I've heard from the assessors who spoke today, we're stronger in our capacity to support surveys and all of the other roles and duties that we have. The second aspect of our priorities in our strategic plan is the revitalization of our certification training for the appraisers. That too, we've taken a hit, as was noted. We acknowledge that we've taken a hit in that area where we haven't really had the capacity in terms of number of staff and resources, et cetera, to support that fully like we've done in days of old. Again, under our strategic plan, it is absolutely my focus. So I appreciate the conversations we're having today, and we all are saying very much similar things. There's an aspect of this where we're all working together to develop the workforce and the certification training. The anchor to this is absolutely going to be in the compensation area. At the state level, addressing the compensation level is something that is certainly something that could be achieved, But I have to confess, it's not going to be it's not a short journey to get to that destination. I've been through it a couple of times myself in my well over 30 years of experience with the state. And so I'm optimistic about its opportunities to increase our compensation, but it is definitely work. I look forward to working with my board to get some help in that area, working with the legislature, the governor's office, and the other CalHR agencies. So I think we can get some good work done in that lane. I'm looking forward, members, to working with you. I know in 2019, I was invited to a meeting with the board member Cohen to participate in some initial discussions on workforce with the California community colleges. We are continuing this conversation today and having the pleasure of working with Chairman Vasquez and board member Gaines to really drill down even more on partnering with the community colleges. To note again, we've been working with the community colleges, specifically Los Rios Community College, for some time now, but this really just gives us an opportunity to expand our responsibilities in that area. I just want to note that, working with that is with the community colleges will enhance our capacity to fulfill our duties, but it doesn't replace our role or our responsibility, nor our leadership in that space. And so that's something that I'm committing to you that we will absolutely engage in. Further, I want to make sure that even as we're distributing some more of some of these training courses out to what I call outsourcing out to some of our partners, it's still also we've got to be responsible to maintain our leadership on the coursework. And I think I heard Mr. Lenhart speak to just the quality and the availability of coursework that really ensures the standards, but really helps the assessors. Our job is really to provide that so that they can absolutely perform their duties, and then overall it helps with the surveys. So there's a domino effect to all of these things. They're definitely all networked together. So I don't want to take up too much other time for the other speakers. I just wanted to be on record, members, that it is a top priority for me to do two things: invest in our staff and invest in our services, because it's our duty and our responsibility to perform the work and to provide the leadership in that area. And so with your pleasure and with absolutely your partnership and your support, we fully will achieve these objectives. Again, not all of it's going to happen overnight, I have to confess. I wish I could make it happen quickly. Some of these are definitely going to be short-term, low-hanging fruit. Others will be a little bit longer, but I commit to partnering with you to achieve those objectives. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful Chief Deputy, Lisa Renati, who's going to get down in some details for you. And then following her at the chair's leadership of working through the agenda, Mr. Young will participate in some of the other discussions. So again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming. Good morning. My name is Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director of the Board of Equalization. Thank you for the opportunity to present information regarding the BOE's workforce and a general assessment of the challenges we face. In 2018, the BOE felt the effects of a group of experienced subject matter experts who, without much notice, made the decision to retire. A review of our current workforce indicates that we have many staff who are eligible to retire in the coming years. And while I can't downplay the effects of the loss of each experienced appraiser or manager, when you look at the historical data regarding our retirement and retention percentages, the statistics indicate that we have a normal, stable workforce with the occasional wave of retirements. Since 2012, we have averaged 2.8% retirement rate, with a low of 2% and a high of 4%, the latter of which was noted in 2018. However, as someone who has worked at the agency for decades, I can state with certainty that similar waves of retirements were found at the BOE in 1999 and 2009. The difficulty lies with the fact that we are now a smaller agency, so the effect of each loss is more greatly felt. It is imperative that we learn to weather the loss of our experienced staff and find a means to pass on their invaluable expertise. At BOE, we are a specialized group of property tax experts, and we must be strategic in the means to bring in and grow our talent. To be proficient, we know it takes time and experience to develop the property tax expertise that the state, local governments, and industry rely on. This means we must invest in the preparation of our current staff and the future generations to come so they can lead and thrive. Which is why at BOE we are focusing on an investment in our infrastructure and succession planning. This includes updating our hiring and recruitment practices, fostering mentoring relationships and knowledge transfer, and providing practical experience with an intentional focus to remediate the loss of subject matter expertise due to the waves of retirement which we know will occur naturally. With this being said, the challenges we face to increase and develop our staff remain. First, as stated today, to attract the more seasoned property tax professionals,
we find that our compensation is no longer as attractive as it once was. However, it's worth noting that when it comes to the hiring of new appraisers and auditor appraisers and other key staff, the divide is not as large when it comes to compensation. Addressing the compensation issue as a whole is a complicated process, so it's something we will address as a long-term project. The other challenge we face is that our current property tax classifications were created almost 20 years ago. These classifications, or jobs, have not kept pace with the changes to the workforce. Our entry-level, BOE-specific property tax jobs include minimum qualifications, which require both education and appraisal experience. We are currently in the process of documenting our challenges resulting from the current minimum qualifications. The information will be used as a basis for expansion and adjustment of our classifications, which should allow greater flexibility in our ability to attract and retain qualified staff. In addition to workforce planning, classification studies, knowledge transfer, and succession planning, we are also revitalizing and modernizing our recruitment efforts to better reach talented professionals. For example, we are augmenting our on-campus and targeted industry recruitment activities to encourage more people to enter the BOE workforce family and the property tax profession as a whole. And currently our recruiting events are being held virtually, which could possibly allow us to reach more people who may not be able to attend a traditional in-person event. We are also updating our job announcements to include more information about our positions and highlight state benefits in addition to salary. And we are broadcasting our job postings on multiple platforms to attract a greater candidate pool. While the BOE is not alone in dealing with workforce challenges, we've identified our current issues and we're developing specific intentional strategies to soften the effects of our retirements and prepare for the future. As a participant of today's work plan, we also look forward to gathering additional ideas and information from the other participants to incorporate into our plans, and we will work with the board to help advance the strategic effort. And subject to any questions you have, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Renati. Very helpful. Members, do we have any comments or questions of Ms. Renati?
I do, if I could. This is Member Gaines.
Member Gaines, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank Ms. Renati for the presentation. And you had talked about working on training and educating new hires. And I'm just wondering if can we, you talked about changing classification. So will we be able to bring in a new hire and put that person let's say we look at the criteria today versus the new criteria, will we make it easier to bring in someone who has not been trained in really any capacity at the BOE and have that person go through training and education and kind of grow our ranks within the BOE?
Thank you, Senator. That's an excellent question, and what you spelled out is exactly one of the plans that we have. Of course, we would love to have seasoned professionals come in and start at our higher ranks and move through with our training, but we are looking forward to attempting to hire those recent college graduates or perhaps someone returning to the workforce that has a college degree and takes some additional classes and bringing them in and bringing them up to speed. And just so you know, we've been doing that through the years using other classifications that were available to us and are no longer available to us. So it's something that we've been doing throughout the years using the tax auditor classification.
Yes. And could that include someone with an AA degree?
Currently, there would be a possibility on a different path.
Okay.
It's a good question, and it's something you could use on a maybe upper mobility candidate that could come in at a lower level and help with an upper mobility. Yes. Yes,
because if we can bring more people into the fold and then put them through training and additional classes and things of that nature, and we get good, solid people, what an opportunity that would be. I think of my my insurance business, and we've got employees with AA degrees, but they've become such experts in their area that they actually demand good pay and good benefits. And I just think the more we can reach out and provide pathways for people that may not have considered the BOE, but through additional training and maybe taking additional college classes. What a great
excellent point.
opportunity. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
excellent point, and something we have within our strategic plan.
Good. And thanks for the perspective on the retirement rate too. That's helpful because, sometimes you get the impression the sky's falling. And I'm glad that you can look back to 1999 and 2009 and say, it's varied a little bit, but it's an average of 2.8. I know we have challenges in front of us with Prop 15, obviously, but it's good to be able to look backward and forward at the same time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
I have no comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. How about Ms. Stowers?
She's not.
Hearing none.
No, I'm here. I am.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I keep getting muted by user error. Thank you, Ms. Renati, for that overview of your plan for recruitment and retention. It sounds like it's very solid. Look forward to seeing the department implementing those items. That's it.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Ms. Davis, we want to check with AT&T. Any
Mr.
public-
Vasquez? Mr. Vasquez?
Oh, is that Ms. Evans? Go ahead.
It is. This question may be more appropriate for Ms. Fleming, but when we had our informational hearing in San Diego, we received some very wise counsel and advice from CDTFA, I believe the chief deputy. I don't know why I can't recall her name.
Yeah, Katie Hagan.
Katie Hagan. Thank you, Brenda. And the members were very intrigued about her recommendation. She talked about working with CalHR to rewrite our job descriptions for certain job families. She talked about the compensation survey issue. She talked about efforts that we could engage in at the bargaining table. And I just want to know if we have followed up on any of those recommendations or what our plans are. It might even make sense, Mr. Vasquez, to have CalHR be part of a future work group discussion, but would love to hear what our executive director has to say about some of those strategies that were recommended and whether we are pursuing any of them.
Yes, thank you for that, for those questions, and you're correct, Ms. Evans and members. As a result of that conversation, Ms. Hagan and I, along with her staff, the CDTFA HR staff, have worked with our staff. We actually have done a good amount of work that Ms. Hagan got involved in directly, which was a review of the classifications with recommendations. In fact, as Ms. Renati had alluded to just in her presentation, some of that we're actually already doing. Not 100% yet, but there are definitely aspects of it that are already in process. Some of those things, again, is good, bad, or indifferent within government agencies. Sometimes it takes a bit to get everything fully implemented. But we've already started the review and completed the review with Ms. Hagan of the classifications, and as a result of those classifications have made some determinations and have taken actions on how to organize and conduct better recruitment. So as Ms. Renati talked about, you're looking at, better use of classifications and some classifications that might give us better career paths. So that piece of it is definitely in process. The aspect of the class of the compensation, again, a little bit longer. We've had a lot of, discussions about it. There was a break in that activity. Quite frankly, Ms. Hagan left CDTFA and has had another opportunity working for another agency. So we have new staff on board within CDTFA and some changes within the GovOps agency. So we're reestablishing those relationships. And so high on my list of priorities is to take a look at this compensation issue, et cetera. We're just getting an opportunity to hire, as I think I shared with some of you, we're bringing on a new manager in that area that's going to be give us a little bit more experience and some capacity to help us address the compensation level. That, again, members, as I mentioned before, we will absolutely appreciate your help in that lane. So to succinctly respond, yes, as it relates to the classification review, that piece has been done and we're taking action on it. Secondly, on the compensation issue, still in process. I can circle back with you, members, as we have a little bit more conversation about, how to go forward. Again, with Ms. Renati being in the position now and then bringing on another new manager to help with this starting in October, I'll be better prepared over the next few weeks to drill down on some more of that detail. It really is getting our capacity and the knowledge on staff to help us. So I hope that addresses your questions. I'm available for more questions as needed.
Ms. Philomene, I just would ask, thank you so much for sharing that update. I would just ask that we take some time to go back to the recommendations that came out of the September meeting and make sure we haven't missed anything. I think collectively, the board members and especially Ms. Cohen was very, found that testimony and presentation very helpful, and just want to make sure we don't miss any of those opportunities as it relates to how we can invest in our team, do the kind of rebuilding that we are all attempting to achieve, and ultimately just create an environment that is world-class. And I know that's the objective of your team members as well as the board.
Exactly. And in fact, and thank you for that. In fact, Ms. Renati just recently went through that detail. So we're all, thinking the same way and taking the same action. So we're absolutely aligned. Ms. Renati is gone through that video word for word transcripts, and our plan will reflect all elements that were discussed and agreed to.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank
Davis,
you, members.
thank you. Ms. Davis, can we check with AT&T and see if there's any public comment on this item?
AT&T, can you please check to see if there's anyone who'd like to make a public comment on this agenda item at this time?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0. 1, 0. And we have no one in queue.
Thank you. With that, Ms. Davis, if you would please introduce our second major item and sub-item.
The second main item is mandated appraiser certification training. And the first sub-item is A, the California Assessors Association Assessment of Training. It is a discussion of assessor office training methods, efforts for newly hired appraisers and auditor appraisers, training challenges and or gaps, and opportunities for modernization.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. I'm sorry, go ahead. If you would please call our first speaker.
The first speaker is the Honorable Christina Nguyen, Chair of the Education Committee, California Assessors Association, and Sacramento County Assessor. Ms. Nguyen.
Good afternoon, Chair Vasquez and honorable board members. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the discussion today. I am Sacramento County Assessor Christina Nguyen, and I'm the chair of the CAA Education Committee. So my first remarks are really I'm gonna put on my Education Committee hat for the first part of my remarks. Entry into the appraisal profession is particularly challenging because there is no existing college degree or coordinated college curriculum that awards a degree in appraisal. Those who want to become appraisers must piece together the courses and seminars and perform apprentice work under certified or designated appraisers. For property tax appraisers, the BOE mandates the coursework for the initial and advanced certification and ongoing continuing education. The very existence of the CAA Education Committee signals the recognition by assessors of the necessity and importance of training. The CAA Education Committee exists to facilitate the ongoing education needs and challenges of assessors. BOE courses have become a necessity for the continuum of assessor operations, and assessors rely heavily on these courses to complete training requirements and achieve certifications. In recent years, assessors have developed their own training courses addressing various appraisal special topics and assessment challenges. CAA affiliate groups known as CASA, Real Property Chiefs, Business Chiefs, and Mapping have developed training courses specific to their assessment specialties. These courses are coordinated with Board of Equalization County Assessed Property training staff and management for course approval and credit. Now with the pandemic, a shift is taking place, and there is no denying that remote learning is part of all of our futures. The CASA group is already plunging ahead with courses using the Zoom webinar platform. The first course will be available in early November. This is an exciting time of possibility, the possibility to increase the reach of our training opportunities to many more assessor staff than ever before. But what is at stake if education is neglected? The market value accuracy standard does require expertise. Without appraisal expertise, value accuracy is impacted with potential for loss of revenue or unfunded liabilities when assessed values are vulnerable to assessment appeal and reduction. Even in a CAMA environment, which is the automated appraisal environment that we're all getting exposed to, staff appraisers must be able to explain appraisals and how to appraise properties. CAMA cannot perform the human functions of talking to property owners and agents or presenting cases at assessment appeals hearings. As we have seen with recent ballot measures and legislation, the tax laws are becoming more complicated. Challenging and complex ideas like the dark store theory are threatening the accuracy of the tax roll and creating the potential for unfunded liabilities. Corporate property owners hire the best legal and subject matter appraisal experts to argue their cases. Now more than ever, county appraisers must be well-trained in appraisal methodology and the art of appeal presentation to adequately defend assessed values. Existing training courses must evolve or be replaced with alternative courses to keep up with the technical sophistication, increasing demand, and fast pace of change in this industry. The current environment presents unique challenges to the continuity of providing training. A new format, some combination of virtual and live video conferencing is the solution. The conversion to virtual and digital content will be time-consuming, but creates an opportunity to refresh training content to ensure it remains relevant, and the modern format does expand availability. Considering the tremendous amount of BOE training content that is designed for in-person format, perhaps professional assistants, possibly a consultant with expertise in distance learning may be beneficial to assist the BOE in achieving the conversion of in-person courses to a distance learning format. Okay, now I'm going to focus my comments on Sacramento County. For purposes of this panel discussion today, Sacramento County is considered a medium-sized county. We have a population of over 1.5 million people with a wide variety of complex residential and commercial properties with just over 510,000 parcels and a roll value of about $189 billion. We have 81 real property appraisers on staff and 15 auditor appraisers. With recent hiring, we have no vacant appraiser or auditor positions. Our hiring lists for appraisers often include dozens more qualified applicants than available positions, but much fewer candidates for auditor appraiser positions. We have 5 primary tools for hiring that we, put together. It's a very successful combination. First of all, everyone probably does the same. The job announcements, of course, you circulate throughout the county and assessor online announcements and publications, and that's, very helpful. But we also participate in the local job fairs of the colleges. The county job fair, but the college job fairs are really where you start to get a lot of interest. And we don't just send HR people, we send the appraisers, we send the young appraisers, the ones recently hired, we send our student interns too. We also have competitive salaries, flexible schedules, and teleworking. And we've had teleworking for about 25 years. And it's a very successful program, and we have hired many appraisers from other counties and the BOE because telework is very desirable to a lot of people. We have good student exposure at the community college level. You're going to hear more about this from the next speaker, Jim Glickman, MAI, Chief Appraiser of Real Property. We've hired quite a few of Jim's students from the community college. And perhaps one of our most successful tools is our student internship program. Many of our student interns are eventually hired as appraisers, and many continue on to have successful careers in this profession. Some have even been elected assessor. During the internship, the student is exposed to processes, systems, appraisal concepts, pretty much setting the foundation for a successful future career. And at the same time, we're getting to know the student and their future potential. We have quite a variety of training resources, and Jim's going to talk more about that, but definitely we rely on the BOE courses and the handbooks. But due to our reliance on the BOE courses, we are concerned about the potential for prolonged unavailability of those in-person courses. We hope that the board members will allocate resources to ensure the courses will be available soon in a format to accommodate the distance learning. Entry-level appraisers in Sacramento County generally work 3 to 5 years before promoting to the commercial appraiser level job class. It is possible this time frame could get extended if the BOE coursework is not available. We might have to look for other alternatives. We do offer promotional opportunities beginning at the clerical level with a career path that leads to entry-level appraiser. This is an available alternative to the 4-year degree requirement. A lot of our employees take advantage of it. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of training to the success of an assessor's office and an individual employee's career and job satisfaction. Beyond training, mentoring is essential. I know I've heard that mentioned earlier today. The appraisal of property cannot be taught in a classroom alone. Good appraisers are developed over time through the experiences of appraising various types of property and working with knowledgeable senior appraisers. From day one, we are training staff to become the next generation of mentors. And that concludes my remarks. I really want to thank the BOE members and staff for their commitment to assist assessors in developing and maintaining a well-trained workforce. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assessor Nguyen. Very enlightening remarks. And with that, if I can have Ms. Davis, please introduce our second speaker.
The second speaker is Mr. Jim Glickman, MAI, Chief Appraiser, Sacramento County Assessor's Office. Mr. Glickman?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Vasquez and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. Again, my name is Jim Glickman. I'm a Chief Real Property Appraiser for Sacramento County Assessor's Office. I've been with the Assessor's Office nearly 10 years. I've been active in the appraisal industry for over 43 years as an appraiser, consultant, educator, and appraisal textbook author. I hold the MAI designation through the Appraisal Institute. In addition to taking an active role in the training and education of staff at the Sacramento County Assessor's Office, I have been teaching Course 56, Advanced Capitalization Approaches, on behalf of the Board of Equalization since 2015. I've also been teaching a full semester real estate appraisal class at Los Rios Community College District since 2003. In part with that, I'm also active in the Community College Real Estate Education Center. It's an organization dedicated to serving the needs of real estate educators and students in the state of California. In anticipation of delivering courses with online components, I successfully completed the Online Teaching Institute Certificate Program conducted by the ITC at American River College here in Sacramento in 2014. My real estate appraisal class at ARC was successfully converted to fully online delivery format this past spring due to the pandemic, and I continue to teach it online this semester. As an aside, I might add that a number of our existing employees seeking to promote to appraiser and those from the outside that we have ended up hiring have taken my appraisal class at American River College. This class has served as an excellent recruiting tool by exposing highly qualified candidates to the appraisal profession, which could include employment opportunities at an assessor's office. I might add, though, I have no recollection of any recent students being employees with the BOE, but they are welcome to attend. I would be also glad to post any BOE employment opportunities on my class website, as I do opportunities from other counties when I become aware of them. But I'm here today to address you about appraiser training in assessor's office and related challenges. Such training, as has already been spoken, has traditionally been delivered face-to-face in the classroom or in the office. In Sacramento County, training is typically conducted by supervisory or lead appraisers, as well as by subject matter experts on a variety of property or specialty types. Training covers general appraisal principles and procedures, as well as valuation and enrollment procedures for tax assessment purposes. As I am sure is true for other counties, and as we have already heard today, our training typically includes guidance on the use of resources and computer systems peculiar to each office. The latter issue will pose challenges to implementing any type of statewide staff appraiser training program, since resources, technology, and enrollment systems differ from county to county. Our office is just starting to initiate our first round of new hire appraiser training since shelter-in-place went into effect, and actually it starts on Monday. Our plan includes the following: initial in-office training in small groups with social distancing, the configuration of our training rooms with adequate audiovisual equipment and computers will place a limit on the number of trainees in the room at one time, effectively cutting the size of classes by half or more. I should note that not all trainees and instructors are comfortable with this format, even if we are taking appropriate safe distancing measures. The most effective component of any education delivery format has traditionally involved in-office sessions where trainings are given case study appraisal events to complete and given real-time instruction and feedback on their progress. And this involves the trainer literally standing or sitting next to the trainee while they are working through a problem or having their work reviewed. Even once initial and formal training is complete, this format continues as appraisers work appraisal activities and are continually being trained and mentored by their instructors and supervisors. We have been able to replicate this format to a certain extent with screen sharing via Zoom or Skype for Business and/or while communicating verbally over the phone, just as we are doing today. While the conversion to remote training and mentoring is still considered effective, it may not be as effective if both instructors and trainees are not proficient in this education delivery format. While Sacramento is fortunate to have sufficient staff, technology, and resources available to train our appraisers, the same may not be true for other counties. Conversely, many counties rely heavily on the education provided by the BOE. While the BOE is able to deliver the initial Course 1, or Prop Tax 310 and Basic Appraisal fully online for newly hired or promoted appraisers seeking to become permanent appraiser, the examination must still be taken in person. So here are some bullet points as far as challenges for appraiser training and certification as I see it. The BOE certification exam still requires in-person testing and proctoring. While local alternatives can be arranged, many test takers must travel considerable distances to take the exam. The certification and training program at the BOE has a small staff, which limits their ability to deliver the entirety of the required curriculum for those seeking to become advanced appraisers. Until converted to online delivery format, or until such time the class training is resumed, most classes are not currently being taught, and obtaining the advanced certificate will be challenging. Teaching the very small classes might be possible for those instructors and students willing to participate, but that is not the most effective use of an instructor's valuable time. For the limited number of the required courses currently delivered online or soon to be offered, all students still are required to take the exams in person. Although there are some alternative or equivalent courses available to those seeking to become advanced appraisers, they come at a considerable cost to the individual county. Examples include courses available from the Appraisal Institute and a variety of private education providers. Conversion of classes and related training materials so that they can be delivered remotely and effectively by the BOE will be time-consuming. Based on my personal experience, it can take 8 to 12 hours to prepare a 1-hour presentation or class, including case study and other training materials. I would guess it will take a month or more to convert one of BOE's 3 or 4 day classes to online delivery. As an aside, I am currently working on a recording of a 3-hour training video to be shared with the BOE to make available to all counties. But to illustrate my point, I've been working on this presentation for more than a month while trying to fit in my regular duties. While the BOE has a small but talented pool of instructors, I do not believe any have specialized training in online or distance learning. Recent symposiums by professional appraisal organizations on this subject are recommending that instructors obtain the CDI certification from the International Distance Education Certification Center. The CDI program is designed to be used by persons preparing to teach professional and academic educational courses via a variety of distance education delivery methods. Those becoming certified will have an excellent credential and knowledge base by which to begin or continue their work facilitating distance courses. The same or similar training should be encouraged for BOE course developers and instructors to ensure future courses are developed and delivered in a professional and effective manner. As far as gaps go, I believe the foregoing addresses them, particularly the gaps in course offerings to those seeking the advanced certification. Regarding modernization, in addition to the implementation of distance learning opportunities for appraisers, I believe the BOE should expand the recommended knowledge base for assessor staff to include GIS solutions. We use this technology in our personal lives each and every day to find the closest Starbucks or to find the best route when traveling. Historically, the use of GIS tools in the assessor's office was associated with a parcel mapping process. However, GIS tools and solutions are now an integral part of the property discovery, valuation, and assessment process. Our offices have a vast spectrum of data that can be captured using GIS solutions. Simply put, these tools allow us to better visualize our data, see spatial or locational relationships, and create a wide variety of customized applications. From maps showing the locations of properties along with various characteristics and pending assessment activities, to publishing dashboards and story maps, with some of the same data can be made available to the public. More offices are using or expanding the use of computer-assisted mass appraisal, assessment, and appraisal software programs, or what is called CAMA. These CAMA programs have GIS tools integrated into them. By developing or delivering training on GIS, we will enable appraisers to make more timely and accurate assessments. I also believe that educating our staff in the use of GIS applications will enable us to better serve the public. For our own office, I envision us having at least one GIS analyst on our staff to directly support our appraisal functions on a full-time status. This concludes my remarks. Once again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I would be happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glickman. Your experience is very helpful, and we will get to some comments and questions after our last speaker here. If I could have Ms. Davis please call our third speaker.
The third speaker is the Honorable Charles W. Leinhart, Plumas County Assessor. Mr. Leinhart?
Okay, thank you. Honorable Board Chair and Board members, thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. I would just like to compliment Chair Wynn and Jim Glickman on an outstanding presentation, and I think they probably covered a lot of the perspectives. I, as a small county assessor, wish I had some of the resources that they're talking about. In small counties, we generally have relied on BOE training as our principal source of training. We do on-the-job mentoring with all of our appraisers, and that continues on through their careers as they grow into commercial and industrial properties as well. We also take advantage of the courses which are offered by the CAA in the form of CASA classes. Those are now on more of a Zoom type format, and those are helpful. I think one of the things that I'm struggling with, I think, as an assessor and trying to come up with the best ways to have training with employees. I appreciate the efficiencies that online training provides. However, I kind of go back to one of the benefits I felt we got by having in-classroom training is it provided appraisal staff members, or all my staff members really, to get to know the others in the industry, their counterparts, and created some networking. And I see that it's more difficult for those, I think, networking relationships to be built in the online environment. And I think that I think as the board looks at training opportunities, I think as CAA looks at how we provide training, I think we also need to try to make sure that we find ways to create that networking environment so that, particularly in a small county, it's incredibly beneficial for me to know who the subject matter experts are in other counties as we're resolving issues. And so I'll just throw that one out on the table, and I think that would conclude my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Lennar. Very insightful. Ms. Davis, if you would please call our fourth speaker.
The fourth speaker is Mr. George Ranke, Chief Deputy Assessor, Los Angeles County Assessor's Office. Mr. Ranke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As I mentioned earlier, Los Angeles has a one-year training program, and our entry-level requirements are a four-year degree to enter that program. What I want to add to that in this particular segment is that we've also been working on a community college program that would be a career development program for people interested in entering into the real estate field, or more specifically, to become an appraiser at the assessor's office or at any assessor's office. As Assessor Wynn mentioned, that most of us that were interested in this field had to piece together our coursework as we were going through or preparing for a career in real estate or real estate and appraisal specifically, and would have liked to have had a program that was geared towards that profession, or would lead to not only the opportunity to become an appraiser for the county, but if you were interested in other areas of real estate that would lend itself to that also. So we have been working with the community colleges and the board to put together a program which would lead to an associate's degree in real estate, and possibly with a specialization in appraisal that would lead to a career in our offices and be the entry level to get a job with an assessor's office and start building a career and working towards a four-year degree possibly, and becoming an appraiser and leading through a career with the assessor. And there's been a lot of focus on this. I think it's an excellent idea. It's something that I wish was in place when I was coming through, and I also believe that it provides an excellent opportunity for the staff that's currently working with the office, not necessarily as an appraiser, but is interested in putting together a career as an appraiser and staying with the office. I think it benefits us as an office in maintaining our staff, and we were talking a little bit earlier about retaining staff, and this is an excellent way of providing the training and the career opportunities that are needed to retain staff and keep them on and lead to a career with the office. So a lot of focus has been in this area, and that we've had excellent conversations with the chancellor and the vice chancellor from the community college in this area, and are very hopeful that we'll be able to move forward with developing this program with the assistance of the BOE, and we thank you for your support in this effort. Thank you.
This is Brenda Fleming, Executive Director. We have a temporary technical issue with the chair. If everyone can just hold for 5 minutes, we'll be right back with you.
Ms. Fleming, I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Sorry about that. We had a little surge here, and I don't know if it was statewide or just here in Santa Monica.
Chairman, Mr. Renke completed his presentation. We're ready for Q&A.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Renke, for your comments. Members, do we have any questions or comments for any of these excellent speakers on the Assessors Association assessment or training?
I do, if I could.
Mr. Gaines, go ahead.
Yeah, Member Gaines, thank you. This is a great presentation. I wanted to thank the participants. And is Christina Nguyen still available, assessor?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for your presentation. I really
You're welcome.
well done, and nicely laid out. And I was just interested in how your attendance at job fairs and using recently hired employees to take on, probably be there and interact with potential employees, with students. And has that been successful in recruitment? Have you found that to be a good
Yes.
pathway?
Yes, it really is. And it's very successful right now, all of these are virtual. So we're preparing for a career fair right now with Sac State, and it's going to be virtual. And so what happens is the college students are seeing that there's other recent graduates or active college students who are interns that are made available to talk to them and answer their questions. So it brings the interest in. It attracts the students to want to talk to us. And that's what we need. We need the hook.
Yes, that's
we need to get them, so we can talk to them. So it has been very successful, and the student interns like to do it.
Yes.
And, as a mother of a 23-year-old who recently went through this, his comments to me when he was talking to going to job fairs and things was he wanted to talk to people actually doing the work. He didn't want to talk to the HR people.
Right.
And so we find that works very well to have actually Jim, who's on the line, is going to be attending. He would be their manager. Mm-hmm. And we have an active student intern and a new hire and a supervisor. So you've got, a varying level of experience, background, age groups there. And, we're just trying to make sure these people understand about this opportunity because, like I said before, you don't know much about it in college. People don't really talk to you about it. Although I will say that UC Davis does offer one class in appraisal that I took. I'm a UC Davis graduate. I took their appraisal class. That's what hooked me into it.
Interesting.
So the student interns being participating in the recruiting is great. And also, we sometimes get new student interns that way.
Sure.
Because we're always looking for student interns.
Great. I'm wondering, could you talk a little bit about bringing someone in at the entry level and how over time and training and education they can turn into an appraiser.
You mean if they're brought in not at the appraiser level, if they're coming in at a clerical level, or if they're...
Yes. Yeah.
Is that so we've set our job classes
and
are set up so that
if... Without a degree, or maybe an
What was
AA
that?
degree?
Yes. So if we hire someone at a clerical level, we have quite a few clerical positions, they can work their way up from the very entry-level clerical all the way to appraiser. The job classes are set up so that they can advance from one to the other over time. And of course, there's the typical process of civil service and interviews and all that. But we also allow them to shift around within the office to work in different areas to get exposure and experience. And so we do hire people in. You can become an appraiser if you have the combination of some coursework and education, right? Some coursework and experience.
Yes.
You can be
Yes.
hired, and you don't have to have the 4-year degree.
Yes.
We do get a lot of experienced appraisers who want to hire in even at the entry level.
Interesting.
And Jim can answer maybe more about this than me, since he's hands-on with them all the time. Jim, do you want to add some comments?
Well, I think you've covered it very well, Christina. I will point out that in our office, many of the employees are aware that I teach the class at ARC, and I will just say that a very high percentage of those that take my class and interview well and have other qualifications end up getting promoted to appraisers. So, within our own office, they look at taking my class as kind of an introduction to appraisal, figure out what it's all about. Just like Christine has talked about, just making people aware of what appraising is. Really is attractive to many. In my class at ARC, I have a lot of people that I guess flipped from sales and brokerage to appraising, because they finally figured out, oh, you know what? I think I'm more cut out for appraising. So just exposing people and offering more classes, as in LA, I think that's a great idea to have some type of an associate or even a certificate program in appraising as an alternative, along with all other real estate. I might add, though, at the community college, and I know you're going to talk about this later, but what I've seen is there's over 500,000 people in the brokerage and sales industry. And a lot of the community college curriculums are designed for those people. In the state of California, there are less than 10,000 licensed and certified appraisers that are licensed through the BREA. And frankly, I don't know how many appraisers we have within the assessor's offices, but it's going to be difficult to develop a curriculum entirely focused on appraising, because there's a very limited market, if you will. So it does take some talent to attract the qualified individuals to appraising, and as I said, job fairs, maybe more exposure on LinkedIn, and just thinking about the other social media ways of reaching out to the younger generation is gonna help us build our ranks.
Sure.
But within our office, we have a very successful program. And we spend a lot of time with our appraisers. It is a 1-year program, similar to LA, and they've got to make it through that, and of course pass the BOE certification exam as well.
Sure. Okay. And you talked also about reaching out with virtual classes or online classes.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's very difficult to develop that curriculum and then have that expressed online, but it sounds like you're working on that. What could we do at the BOE to try to advance that concept?
Well, as I stated, I think it's really you've got a good staff, and you've got instructors that are very knowledgeable, and it's just a matter of, and I'm learning, believe me, I'm in the learning stage of trying to deliver this education online. It's different.
Yeah.
And you've got to work at doing it effectively, and developing case studies, things that translate well to online. But I'm not sure down in LA if the community college system has it, but I believe the entire California Community College District, all of them use what's called Canvas. So it's an online platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm delivering this class this year. And I know everybody's talked about the importance of in-office training, but for basic courses, I'm finding it actually more effective than in person in some ways, and mainly engagement and getting the quiet ones to reach out. So they're basically making posts on discussion boards. They don't have to raise their hand and talk in front of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And by having these discussion boards, I'm getting more engagement and more participation in my online class than probably I would get in person. So and if you can design classes that way, I think it can be very effective. But as I stated, the one challenge is maintaining the integrity of the exams for the BOE courses, and so that you'll have to find a way around that. There are some companies that offer proctored exams services, so I know that's going to be something that we have to maintain, is the integrity for the exams themselves.
Sure. So those would always be done in person, you think? Exams?
Not necessarily. There are alternatives. There are private firms that offer proctoring services where they lock down somebody's screen, so they can't take a screen image. They have to be visually in front of the computer the entire time they're taking the exam. So there are ways of locking it down and maintaining the integrity. But there is technology for that. But and I don't know about the cost, so that might be something to look into.
Yes. Okay. Can you expand a little bit on the classes that you are teaching? Of course, you mentioned American River College, but you also mentioned Los Rios.
Yes. So that class is 70% of the people in there are taking my class because it's a requirement to become a broker, or it's an alternative if they want to become a real estate agent. But I have others in there that are in management, people to flip houses, and a very small percentage start out taking the class because they're interested in appraising. But as I said, I have flipped some people to become appraisers and become interested in it, and it becomes a very good recruiting tool, and it's kind of like the first step to what LA is talking about, just having get your foot in the door and establish that first class and then build on it. But I think a successful program may have to require designing it not just for assessors, but for the general appraisal population, either to fulfill their required appraisal requirements if you're becoming a licensed or certified appraiser, say for lending work, but also it can be used for continuing education.
Okay.
Either for assessors or other appraisers.
Okay. And are you teaching different classes at Los Rios versus American River College?
No, I've been teaching the same basic introductory appraisal class.
Okay.
For since 2003. I've got a full-time job, so it's that's what I do in my free time in the evenings and weekends.
Wonderful. That's great. This is so helpful. I appreciate your input, both Assessor Nguyen and Jen Glickman. Thank you. I'm wondering is Brenda available? Brenda Fleming?
Yes, I'm here.
And I think we have some great information here, and my hope is that maybe we can continue to foster this relationship and see what we can glean to help in our own training programs.
Absolutely. Lots of good material.
Yes.
Taking lots of notes.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Schaefer?
The only comment I had, one of the previous speakers talked about people that are studying how to flip houses are also interested in training for assessment. I guess, we're not in the house flipping business, but I can see where the people that are in that great industry know a lot about assessment, and maybe we could reach out at some point to some of them to give them a real job.
It may be tough to probably compete with what they're making, but yes, no, that's not a bad idea. Ms. Dowers, do you have any comments?
No comments at this time.
You know, I think this was really enlightening and listening, especially to the different assessors, because we got a feel and a taste actually for the different sizes, and I think we're heading down the right path. You know, I know at the beginning some people were a little nervous that we were maybe pushing these emergency, what I was calling the emergency certificate for appraisers, to get them in just with an AA degree. But in listening to the folks that just spoke, it sounds like there's already some samples to draw from where people are coming in at different levels and are working their way through to become this full appraiser, and then even moving on to being an advanced appraiser. And it just, to me, it mimics so much what I went through as a beginning teacher when we had the emergency credential. And so I'm looking forward to it. It looks real promising. And I believe we have all the players, especially up and down the state, where we can hopefully create this statewide model. And I know LA is moving pretty quick with their pilot, and I think we can learn a lot from what Jeff Prang, the assessor's doing there with the community colleges, and take this thing on the road. So hopefully we could be prepared, because I think regardless, whatever happens in November, there seems to be a shortage, especially in the larger counties, moving forward with just people retiring and just the whole attrition rate. And then we're losing folks, you know, because of the private sector as well. Ms. Davis, do we have anybody on the public comment, AT&T?
We can definitely check, sir. AT&T, can you please check to see if there's anyone on the public line who'd like to make a comment on this item at this time?
Thank you. If you would like to share a public comment, you may press 1 and then 0 using your telephone keypad. Again, that's 1, then 0. Thank you. There are no public comments in queue at this time.
Thank you. You know, members, I'm looking at the time. It's almost going to be 1 o'clock. This might be a good time to take our lunch break, and then we can come back to the second part of this before we get into the community college piece. What's the wishes of the members?
Yes, please.
I was thinking, because I know staff is probably needing for a break as well. Do we want to take like a good 30 minutes though for lunch, or what do you think?
I would suggest we take less if we can eat faster. I'm anxious to conclude the day.
Anybody else?
Well, as much as I want to conclude today, I need 30 minutes.
Okay. Why don't we do 30? Because I'm thinking, you know, we also have the staff. You know, we want to make sure they get fed as well, right?
Sure, I defer to.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So members, the staff would appreciate a 30-minute break.
Why don't we do 30 minutes then?
That's
Great.
fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so I guess it'll be like 12, well, it'll be like 1:20.
That's fine
That works,
with Vice Chair Schaefer.
All right, we'll see you back in 30 minutes.